The first time my coworker stole my work, I actually thanked her for it. We were standing in this glass-walled conference room on the 12th floor, city lights smeared across the windows like someone dragged a brush over them. My slides were on the screen, my numbers, my framework, my late nights. Lauren was at the front of the room, holding the clicker like a microphone, laughing at a joke someone from sales had cracked. Honestly, this was such a team effort, she said, and every pair of eyes in that room stayed glued to her. My name wasn't on the deck. It had been on the version I sent at 1:27 a.m., but somewhere between my outbox and the projector, it disappeared. When the director shook her hand at the end and said, "Great work, Lauren. This is exactly the direction I wanted." Lauren turned to me, touched my arm lightly, and said, "Couldn't have done it without Alex. He really supported." Supported. I nodded and smiled like an idiot. Afterward, in the hallway, I told her, "You did great." And I meant it. That's the worst part. I was proud. It felt like we'd both won. I told myself that's how it works in corporate. Some people build, some people present. I'm not a presenter. I like spreadsheets, messy whiteboards, long documents with too many comments. She likes lights, rooms, attention. I convinced myself this was balance. It didn't start with theft. It started with, "Can you take a quick look?" "Hey, Alex, I'm struggling to make sense of these churn numbers. Do you have a minute?" She'd roll her chair to my desk, laptop open, perfume hitting me half a second before she did. She'd sit next to me, too close for me to see the screen properly, nails clicking on the touchpad. She had this open, messy Miro board full of stickies and arrows, like someone had tried to diagram chaos itself. "Sure," I'd say, because what else was I going to say? "No?" I'd pull the numbers from our warehouse, clean them, segment them by cohort, add retention curves. Then I'd realize the problem wasn't just the numbers, but the way the story was framed. So I'd rewrite her outline. Then I'd see how it connected to two other initiatives and add those in. 2 hours later, I'd hand her back something completely different. She'd beam. "You're a lifesaver. Seriously, I owe you." She never said what exactly she owed me. At first, it was mostly credit in small rooms. "This is actually Alex's idea," she'd say casually to our product manager. Or, "Alex found this trend," when we were in a working session, and I thought, okay, it balances. She gets the spotlight. I get reputation as the smart one. That's enough, right? Then the rooms got bigger. A cross-functional meeting with sales and operations. A quarterly check-in with leadership. An all-hands where the CEO dropped in for 10 minutes on Zoom and half the company's video turned on at once like a stadium flipping on the lights. I was there. I was always there. Usually off to the side, halfway down the table, laptop open, cursor blinking in the notes dock. Someone would ask a hard question, and Lauren would glance at me for a half second, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. "Alex, do you want to jump in on that?" She'd say, generous. I'd answer. I always had the answer. I lived in the data. I knew which experiment had failed and why, which market we weren't talking about, where the hidden risk was. People nodded. Someone would say, "Good catch, Alex," and we'd move on. And when the wrap-up email went out, it was from her. Per our discussion, I'll be leading the rollout of, not we, not we'll, I. If this sounds like I'm stupid, I was, but not because I didn't see it. Because I did, and I still made excuses. She's better in front of people. I'm not political. At the end of the day, we're judged on team results. That's what I told myself when she was the one called on a stage at the annual offsite to receive a glass award for driving strategic growth. I was in the audience, clapping with everyone else, the table number card digging into my palm because I was gripping it too hard. She held the award up, laughed into the mic, and said, "This is really a win for the whole product marketing team, especially Alex, who's been my rock this year." My rock. Everyone turned to look at me. I gave a small, awkward wave. It felt like someone had just patted me on the head in front of 200 people. That night, my manager pulled me aside at the bar. "Hey," he said, drink in hand. voice just loud enough to be heard over the music. I know Lauren gets a lot of visibility, but I see what you're doing too. Don't think it goes unnoticed. I wanted to believe him. Really wanted to. So I nodded and said, I appreciate that. He didn't mention my name in his Q4 recap. Hers was on 4 slides. The thing about letting people take your work is that it doesn't feel like a big theft at first. It's like losing socks in the laundry. 1 credit here, 1 introduction there, 1 meeting you're mysteriously not invited to because it'll be more high level. Don't worry, I'll represent the team. Then one day you open your drawer and realize you're down to 2 pairs and a button you don't remember owning. The first time it really stung was over something stupid, a 1-pager. We'd been trying to get one of our enterprise clients to pilot a new feature. They liked the concept, but didn't understand why they should be first. So I spent a week building a tight argument. Risk analysis, adoption curve, upside scenarios, fallback options. I stayed lat 3 nights writing versions that were simple enough to hand to a non-technical VP, but detailed enough to stand up under scrutiny. I sent it to Lauren at 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday. Subject line, Enterprise Pilot, Framing Doc, V3 ready for client. I fell asleep on the couch with my laptop half open. The next morning, she walked past my desk with a coffee in each hand. Got your doc? It's perfect, she said, putting 1 cup down next to my keyboard. I cleaned up a couple of phrases. Hope that's okay. Meeting got moved up to 9:15. I'm heading there now. Do you want me in the room? I asked. She hesitated just long enough for me to notice. I think it'll be too many people if we both join. They like it small. I'll ping you after. I told myself it was fine. She's good in rooms. Let the best salesperson handle it. I went back to my Jira board, updated a ticket, answered a Slack thread, pretended not to feel like something was sliding out of my hands again. At 10:30, my manager pinged me. Nice job on the enterprise framing, he wrote. Client loved the way Lauren positioned it. Great example of her stepping up strategically. I stared at the message for a long time. Not your doc, not your analysis. The way Lauren positioned it. I clicked back to my email, opened the sent folder, looked at the timestamp. 11:43 p.m., my name in the footer, my words in the body. I imagined the same pages on the table in that small conference room. My name cropped off the bottom when she hit print. That was the first time I didn't answer no problem right away. I just left my manager on read and sat there listening to the quiet hum of the open office. On the other side of the floor, someone laughed at something on their screen. The espresso machine hissed in the kitchen. My heart was beating too fast for a normal Friday morning. Maybe it would have ended there. Another swallowed frustration. Another story I tell my friends over beer with a shrug, like it's just how things are. But a promotion cycle was coming, and promotions don't care about who stayed up late. They care about whose name is on the slide when the VP walks into the room. The promotion cycle was the moment everything snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but the way a hairline crack in glass suddenly runs all the way to the edge. 2 weeks before the official review meetings, our director sent out a request. Please submit your highlight projects for the year. Attach supporting materials, metrics, and outcomes. I had everything documented. Every SQL query, every research outline, every test I had run alone at midnight while the office lights dimmed into that blue-tinted emptiness. I spent the weekend organizing it into a clean, structured portfolio. 5 projects, each with a timeline, goals, execution notes, and impact. On Monday morning, I walked into the office feeling something close to confidence. Not the loud kind, the quiet, earned kind. I was finally ready to be seen. At 10:13 a.m., I got a calendar invite. Promo case prep, Lauren plus director, Tusnout PM. Optional, Alex may join. Optional, for my own projects. I stared at the subject line so long my coffee went cold. When I arrived at 2, the room was already half full. Lauren sat at the head of the small round table, The director on her left. She had printed packets, thick ones, neatly stapled, color-coded tabs sticking out like she was defending a dissertation. Except the name on the cover wasn't mine. It was hers. Yearly Impact Summary. Lauren Carter. She slid one across the table toward me like she was doing me a favor. I opened it. Page 1. Strategic Retention Expansion. Led by Lauren Carter. My project, my data, my wording. Even the chart template was the one I built myself. Page 2. Enterprise Pilot Initiative. Conceptualized and deployed by Lauren Carter. Again, mine. Page 3. Activation Funnel Redesign. Under Lauren's leadership. Mine. 5 projects, all 5. Not shared, not co-led. Hers. I looked up. Lauren smiled the way people smile when they bring brownies to the office. Warm, harmless, practiced. I streamlined the messaging, she said. Didn't want the committee to get overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? By my existence? The director leaned back, scanning the packet. This is excellent work, Lauren. Really strong narrative. Shows clear leadership. Leadership, I should have spoken. I should have said something right there. But you can't fight when you can't breathe, and in that moment, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I couldn't even form the sentence. This is mine. My voice stayed lodged in my throat like a stone. Lauren continued flipping pages, explaining her process, her rationale, her strategy. Occasionally, she glanced at me. A tiny flick of the eyes, half checking if I'd protest. But she'd learned me too well, learned that I wouldn't start a war in a small conference room with glass walls and people walking by, learned that I'd rather break quietly than make noise. She was counting on that. The meeting wrapped with the director telling her, "This is the strongest portfolio I've seen so far. You're a clear front runner." I left without a word, walked straight to the stairwell and sat down on the cold metal step. Just sat. Hands shaking, jaw locked, pulse throbbing behind my ears. The truth hit me like a slow, heavy wave. For years I had been disappearing, piece by piece, project by project, until the version of me inside the company was nothing more than a shadow behind her spotlight. That night, close to midnight, I stayed in the office long after everyone left. The cleaning crew passed me twice. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound. I opened every folder I had, every doc, every Slack thread, every version history. I didn't rage. I didn't slam anything. I just observed, page after page of my work taken, rewritten, relabeled, not dramatically, just enough to erase me. And there, under the fluorescent quiet as the city flickered outside the windows, a thought surfaced. Calm, level, cold. This won't happen again. I started building a master archive, a clean chronological record of every project I owned, with timestamps, originals, version histories, and the metadata behind the file creation. Real, verifiable proof. Not emotional pleas. Not, but I did it. Evidence. It wasn't revenge. Revenge is reactive. This was preparation. 2 days later, the company announced what everyone had been whispering about for weeks. We're bringing in an external consultancy to run performance calibration and prepare for organizational restructuring. People groaned. Someone joked about corporate Hunger Games, but I felt something different, a shift, a hinge turning, because I knew something no one else did. One of the lead consultants was someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Priya Varma, my former classmate in grad school, the sharpest person in the room, even when the room was full of sharp people. She wasn't corruptible. She wasn't impressed by charm. She didn't care who talked the loudest, and she was about to evaluate the department Lauren had built her career, taking credit for. But that was just the beginning. That night, as I saved the final PDF into my archive, something inside me settled. Not anger, not bitterness, clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't trying to survive the situation. I was preparing to end it. The consultants arrived on a Wednesday, early, quiet, efficient, the kind of people who carried their authority without announcing it. By noon, the entire floor was tense. People rewrote their self-evaluations, deleted Slack messages, rehearsed answers in the bathroom mirror. You could feel the shift in the air. Every conversation suddenly had stakes. When the announcement email came through, consulting team will conduct individual project assessments this week. Lauren strutted across the office like someone who'd already won. She wore a white blazer she only brought out for important days, the kind she believed signaled leadership. She joked loudly about crushing this thing and finally getting the title she deserved. She had no idea what she was walking into. My assessment with Priya was scheduled for Thursday morning. I got to the meeting room 5 minutes early. She was already there, typing notes, her posture exactly the same as it had been in grad school. Perfect, composed, sharp. When she finally looked up, her eyes softened for just a second. "Alex? Wow, long time." "Yeah," I said. "Didn't expect to cross paths like this." She smiled, barely, but enough. "I never forget the people who actually carried their teams." Not a joke, not flattery, a statement of fact. She started the evaluation the professional way. "Walk me through your major projects this year." I opened my laptop and showed her the archive, clean, chronologically structured, with version histories visible. She read quietly, eyes moving fast, cross-checking dates, comparing them to the leadership notes she'd been given. At one point, she stopped, tapped one file name with her pen, and said, "Interesting. This project is listed under someone else, but the metadata says you created every version." I kept my voice steady. "That's been the pattern." She didn't look surprised. She didn't even look irritated. She looked focused. "Explain the workflow," she said. So I did, calmly, methodically. Not dramatic, not emotional, just the truth. How Lauren requested drafts, asked for quick help, forwarded my docs as her own, removed my author tags, and claimed projects in leadership meetings I wasn't invited to. I expected skepticism. I expected at least one probing, "Are you sure?" That's how these conversations usually go. The burden of proof always on the quieter one. But instead, Priya said, "Show me more." I did, for 40 minutes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, closed the folder, and said the one sentence that finally made my breath come easier. "This won't hold up under scrutiny." Not my story, Lauren's. Then she added more quietly, "You did the right thing documenting everything." For the first time in a long time, I felt the ground under me shift back into place. But that was only the start. Priya was thorough, painfully thorough. Every employee in the department had to defend 3 projects end to end. Concept, data, execution, impact. Not in presentation mode, in interrogation mode. On Friday morning, while I was grabbing tea in the kitchen, I saw Lauren walking toward the assessment room, packet in hand, confidence radiating off her. She winked at our director. "I'll keep it tight," she said. He grinned back. "I'm sure you will." The door closed behind her. 15 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. At minute 34, something changed. The floor, usually humming with typing and quiet chatter, sank into a strange silence. People looked up from their screens. Someone whispered, "Is she okay in there?" At minute 41, the door finally opened. Lauren stepped out, but she wasn't glowing anymore. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't even holding her packet, just hugging it with stiff fingers like a life raft. Her eyes were glassy. She walked past me without seeing me, past the interns, past the director, who stood up halfway from his chair, as if to ask something, then slowly sat back down when she didn't even acknowledge him. I don't know what Priya asked her in that room, but I knew the pattern. You can't fake knowledge of work you didn't do. She would have asked about data sources, segmentation logic, hypothesis failures, correlation errors, the things only the real builder knows. And Lauren, for the first time in years, had nothing to stand on. Later that afternoon, I had my final review session with Priya and the department head together. They asked me to walk through the retention model again. I did. Smoothly, clearly, no notes. When I finished, the department head nodded slowly. "I didn't realize you were this involved," he said. "I didn't say I always was. You just didn't look. I just said, 'Happy to clarify.'" And then silence, the kind that means something's gone wrong. Not for me, for the story they had believed about who was leading this team. On my way out, I passed Lauren's desk. She was sitting rigidly, eyes red, staring at her monitor without blinking. Her packet lay open beside her, covered in handwritten consultant notes, whole sections circled, not questions. Gaps. Her gaps. She didn't look up. She didn't need to, because she already knew. The person she'd silenced for years was finally being heard. When the results came out, there was no announcement, no dramatic speech, no corporate drumroll. Just a calendar block titled "Org Updates, Required Attendance." People filed into the all-hands room with the same cautious energy as walking into a doctor's office after waiting too long for test results. I took a seat near the back. Lauren sat near the front, posture stiff, hair perfectly straightened, makeup done with surgical precision, the kind of effort people put in when they're trying to hold the world together by their fingertips. The director stepped forward. His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. "Based on our consultant's findings," he said, "several changes will be made to ensure clarity of ownership and accountability within the team." You could feel the floor lean forward. "Effective immediately," he continued, "the leadership rotation for next quarter will shift. Lauren will transition into a supporting role on internal operations projects. Alex will take over strategic ownership for retention and enterprise initiatives." It was quiet, but not the quiet of confusion, the quiet of understanding. Lauren didn't turn around. She didn't breathe too loudly. She just stared straight ahead at a wall that wasn't offering her anything back. No one laughed. No one gloated. Real consequences rarely come with fireworks. Just a cold, clean line drawn where it should have been from the beginning. After the meeting, people came up to me, cautious, almost embarrassed. "Congrats, man. Long overdue. Knew it was you doing the heavy lifting?" Their voices felt distant, like they were underwater. I wasn't thinking about congratulations. I was thinking about what it had cost me to finally be visible. Later that afternoon, HR sent me a message asking if I had time for a quick conversation. When I joined the call, Priya was there too. She didn't smile this time. She looked serious, professional. "Alex," she said, "I recommended you for a lead analyst role in one of our partner companies. They're opening a new product strategy unit and need someone who can build from the ground up. Your portfolio made an impression." My throat tightened. "This isn't pressure," she added, "just an option. But you deserve a place that recognizes the work you actually do." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't trapped. I wasn't rebuilding a reputation from scraps. I wasn't fighting invisible battles. I had choices. That night, while the office was thinning out, I walked past Lauren's desk. She was alone, staring down at a notebook filled with her handwriting. Lines scratched out, arrows redrawn, little fragments of rewritten self-image scattered across the page. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She looked lost. She finally noticed me. Her voice was quiet. "Was it you?" The question had weight, but no accusation. "It was the truth," I said, calm, steady. Not triumphant, just final. She swallowed. "I didn't think it mattered. Everyone does it. I thought that's how you play the game." "I know," I said, "and that's why it had to stop." She didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't offer any. Some endings don't need dramatic closure, just acknowledgement of the wreckage and the choice to walk away from it. The next morning, I accepted the offer from Priya's partner company. I sent my resignation to HR with a 2-sentence thank you note. No long explanations, no emotional essays, just a clean exit. When I packed my desk, I took almost nothing with me. A notebook, a mug, a USB with archived files. The rest wasn't mine anymore. Or maybe it had never been. On my way out, I paused at the elevator and looked back at the floor one last time. The rows of desks, the hum of monitors, the glass meeting rooms where I'd spent years building things no one associated with my name. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt quiet, a kind of peace that comes when you finally step out of a story you were never meant to shrink yourself into. As the elevator doors closed, one thought settled in my chest. Solid, earned, unmoving. I'm done letting other people write my legacy.